Hi, this is Carolyn, and I'm here with Erin, and we're excited because my husband Mike came down for this podcast episode. People have contacted us previously to discuss sandbagging, and I think I have a solution for the vast majority of sandbagging, at least for the league players. And my solution is that if you are a self-rate or an appeal, you cannot play post the regular season. So you can't play in playoffs, you can't play in the state championships, sectionals, nationals. What do you guys think? Let's start with Mike.
I think it's a great, simple solution, and maybe it catches too many people that are trying to get into tennis for the right reasons. But at the same time, I mean, I know, Carolyn, you like black and white rules. And there's nothing more black and white than this, because right now, I mean, the issue with self rates is it's so it's so subjective right now. You can fill out those self rate questionnaires and end up in a level that is clearly not right for you, one way or the other. I've played self rates at the 4.0 level that are getting back into tennis now, and they clearly should have self rated as a 3.5 or maybe even a 3.0, and they're not at the right level. That's happened before, and I've had the opposite. At my most recent experience was at States, where I played a self-rated 18-year-old senior in high school who clearly self-rated inappropriately and is a strong 4.5 at a minimum. And so obviously, you can game the system a little bit and make it to a state championship final match by self-rating and managing your play during the season. Most people aren't doing it for that reason, in which case you shouldn't care about not being able to participate in the playoffs, because that's not your goal. You're self-rating to get back into tennis, right? And if you're doing it for that reason, then maybe it's not too bad that you pick up some of those people. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. Listen up, USTA.
How about you, Erin?
Great in theory. Absolutely agree with you. I think we have to think through a few things. I've said this before, but so we're talking appeals or just self rates? I guess both, right? What do you think? Both. Okay. So here is what happened to me. So I, several years ago, and I've told this story, played a woman who had been bumped at the ratings bump time, which is like November. She had been bumped from a 3.5 to a 4.0 and then immediately, I guess, hit the button and appealed, and the computer let her. I didn't know that at the time. But I was shocked because I was going in to play her in a singles match and knowing it was her because it was a makeup match. So we had exchanged numbers or names or whatever. And I had called the league on her to find out why she was and this is not an exaggeration, she was 52 wins and 8 losses. And that included playoffs, everything else from the year before. I went through and counted how many wins she had. It was a ridiculous amount. And they told me she was allowed to do it because the computer just allowed her. She just hit a button and she was right on the cusp of being able to appeal down. So in that situation, the computer allowed it. She then proceeded to go on not only to beat me, that's not hard to do, but she won everything at a 3.5 again, because she had already won everything at 3.5 the year before. And then we actually saw her at States because our 3.5 team made it, and she was actually playing for a 4.0 team at States as a 3.5, and she was their number one singles player. And the only thing that happened to her was she won States with her team as a 4.0 on a 4.0 team, and then all of her matches, then she got disqualified for all of her 3.5 matches going backwards. So really that didn't do anything, because if I had played her in a match that actually mattered for my team and we were the deciding court, then she would have knocked my team out and gone on and, she won States at the higher level. So that's disappointing. But again, the computer let her do that. So I'm not really sure how that could be caught, but that's why I agree that if it's, you can only have, maybe there's no limit to appeals and self rates, but it's certainly if they didn't have, I think she I think she appealed down because going into combo season, her captain wanted her to play at the lower level so that they could win again. But so, yeah, I guess if there was no chance to go on, a lot of people wouldn't appeal.
a couple friends that I asked that appealed have an A by their name. And I asked them, hey, if you couldn't play in the state championship or, playoffs or anything like that, would you have appealed? And they said no.
Yeah.
The other option is we go back to the way they did it back in the old days, which was when you come into the league and you want to start playing tennis, you go hit with a local pro or coordinator or a USTA approved evaluator, and that person gives you a rating based on your actual ability to play tennis.
Yeah. I think that's not attainable because of the numbers.
I think the pushback we may get from USTA would be like the goal of USTA is encourage people to play. So I think and there's going to be all these self rates. They won't be able to get on teams. So I think in North Carolina, we have a limit on the number of people that can be on our spring team, at least where we are, which is 15, right? 15. So I think that, self rates or appeals cannot count into that number so that they can still be on your team. We still encourage people to play. But at the end of the day, when you go to playoffs, there can't be any sandbaggers going to playoffs or going to the state championship.
I think you just solved all the problems right there.
But tell me why I'm wrong.
Don't you think, Mike? No, I guess we're agreeing with you.
I think it solves all the problems. But it does hurt those new players who are coming in.
Yes.
And maybe they've put in a lot of hard work and they deserve to be a 4-0. And they're playing on a really good team with good friends. And then you don't let them participate. So you're cutting out those people that are truly doing it for the right reasons, maybe. So.
But for the greater good, right? They can wait a year. We've played a number of years. They can play a year, get their computer rating, and then they get to go to playoffs the next year.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's only 1 year that you have to wait. Every year you get a new computer rating.
Yeah.
Every time I leave the court at the state championship and I play a self rate or an appeal, I leave the court and I say, I may have lost, but I played a self rate. And that's what everybody else says. I played 2 appeals. So it wasn't really a fair match.
Right. The other thing too, I think it was funny, Carolyn, I told you a couple months ago, it was probably right towards the end of spring. I was I just left the courts where I was playing and I was putting my bag in my car and I overheard these 2 gentlemen say, we're going to the state tournament, but every team that we're facing has self rates on it. And they were already complaining before they got to the tournament because they could look at the rosters of the people that they were playing and noticed. So I think in that situation, yes, those people might have been getting back into tennis, like you were saying, Mike, but I also think, there are some people that just re-sign up for USTA and then they self-rate, or they've been out for, a year or 2. And like a lot of people started during COVID, and they do come back in and self-rate lower than what they should. And then they go on to win the state tournament. And then, the computer doesn't catch them for a year. But I don't know, Carolyn, is it, I'm sure you know the rule. Is there a point at which a self rate can get dinged a certain amount of times and then they get a computer rating, or can they get disqualified mid-season?
I don't know those rules, so I have no idea, but I do know that we talked to someone who said, and again, this is all kind of hearsay, that you have 3 strikes, that it's, if you win substantially 3 matches and you're a self rate, that they will then, make you move up to the next level. But supposedly it has to be substantially. So
yeah.
So self rates get DQ'd mid-season.
They do
quite a lot.
Okay. Mm-hmm. We faced a team years ago. I just remember this. We faced a team as 3-0s, and there was a woman who was clearly not a 3-0. And they beat our team. Their team made it to states and not ours, because that was like the final playoff match in our local area. And they went on, and the only thing that happened, and several people had called about this woman throughout the season. And I guess the computer, her scores were good enough not to get, I guess, DQ'd midseason. But after winning, right after that playoff match, when they beat us and they went on to states and we didn't, I think our captain ended up calling again, or maybe even in the moment, like everything got she was disqualified. So she couldn't go on, but she got her team to go to states. So even if you say like, if you have people on your roster that can't go on to, postseason, you could still have ringers or sandbaggers on your team that then knock other teams out that legitimately have a shot of going to states, but you have these sandbaggers now. It knocks, one team out, one team goes on. Whether they do well or not with or without those sandbaggers at states is another thing. But that was a situation that happened, that she did not get disqualified until the computer didn't catch up with her until that last local playoff match, and then her team went on without her. They probably ended up winning. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think this rule is perfect. I just think it gets us towards the goal of taking that away, taking the sandbagging away, especially taking the appeals away, and having less people calling to complain. I think this, it's obviously not a perfect rule, but I think it gets us in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. It's better than what we have today.
Exactly.
Anything else, Mike?
Let it lie.
Yeah, I think people are going to be like, no, that's the dumbest rule I've ever heard, But Erin, anything else?
All the people that were affected by it are going to be like, that's genius. And anybody that that worked in their favor to have self rates, that's dumb. Yeah, they're going to hate it.